In the year or so that I have been making Universal Epic Universe construction updates, I do not think that there has been this much news and information that has dropped on Epic Universe in such a short time. Universal has released an Epic Universe Preview Center app that allows guests to start to get familiar with the attractions and venues throughout the park. The Epic Universe Preview Center in City Walk is nearing completion and opening. And lastly, has a Universal executive made an oopsie on revealing the estimated opening of Epic Universe? Not only do we get all of these non-construction related pieces of information, we have the normal stuff to go over, like the first roof panels being installed on Constellation Carousel, water filling the water features throughout Celestial Park, and the scaffolding coming down around the grandstands in How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Burk. All of this and more on this week's Universal Epic Universe Construction Update, with our aerial views provided to us as always by BioReconstruct. Here very soon, Universal Epic Universe Preview Center will be open in City Walk. The construction walls that have surrounded the old Legacy store for the last several months have been removed, being replaced with decorative barriers, which signals that the opening is near. Guests who visit Universal will be able to see a 3D mock-up of Epic Universe that Universal used in the media release. In this center, you will also be able to check out land-specific merchandise and information for each land. Pairing with the opening of the Preview Center, Universal has released the Epic Universe Preview Center app. This app allows guests to take a virtual tour using augmented reality. This feature can only be used inside of the Preview Center. However, you do not have to be at the Preview Center to use the app. Inside of the app, Universal has every released ride and dining location listed with the description of the item in question, including the new name for the dueling launch coaster in Celestial Park, Stardust Racers. Back in May, the Super Bold podcast hosted Executive Creative Director of Epic Universe, Steve Tappan. On this episode, Steve goes on saying that Epic Universe is set to open at the beginning of next year, before next summer. Before. Does this mean that Universal is targeting being open for Spring Break 2025? If Universal is targeting the college crowd, there is a chance that March 1st will be the opening day of Epic Universe. There is still a lot to go on before the park is ready to be opened, but nothing is impossible at this point. Another possibility is opening around Easter, which most school districts have off either the week before or after Easter. This would put the opening of the park about 6 weeks later on or around April 12th. Both of these dates are before summer, so they are still good possibilities for Universal, so they are able to maximize crowds. These crowds will make their way through the dense forest near the parking lot. Making their way through the forest towards the ticketing plaza, there is new concrete poured around the garden where there is a tree planted. After purchasing your ticket, guests make their way through the security plaza where the circular concrete has begun to be poured between the awnings. Along the roof of the awnings, there are curved beams that stretch out between the buildings around the entrance to the park. These beams are beginning to be wrapped in exterior boards for theming. After guests make it through security, they are met by the Kronos Tower, which is the gateway into Epic Universe. On either side of the Kronos Tower, there are smaller walls that match the color of the Kronos Tower. Inside of these walls, there are small arches that look like they will be secondary exits to the land for those who do not go through the bottom of the Kronos Tower. The yellow bracing on the sides of the Kronos Tower are temporary braces that will be removed once the tower is complete. The curved stairs that were seen on the Ground Blast update have been installed in between the Kronos Tower and the rockwork on the right side of the tower. Once guests make it through the Kronos Tower and enter Celestial Park, they are first met by Luna Overlook, which gives fantastic views of Celestial Park. Luna Overlook appears to be ready for concrete, seen by the reinforcing rebar installed. The view this week from Luna Overlook would be one of amazement, seeing all 3 large water features being filled with water for the first time. Looking closer at the main show fountain, we are able to see water cascading down the waterfall for the first time as well as it feeds the show fountain. Inside of the cascading waterfalls near Luna Overlook, we can see several new areas of shaping of new rockwork similar to the rocks found on the edge of the middle water feature near Constellation Carousel. Between Atlantic and Constellation Carousel, there have been a number of trees planted. Inside of these trees, there looks like there will be a larger opening for a pathway that will offer a unique view of the waterfalls and the Kronos Tower. The guest pathway that will separate Atlantic and Super Nintendo World has had its curbing formed, which gives us a perspective of the dead space around the buildings that will be filled in during the coming months. Just next to this location is the bridge that separates the first and second water feature of Celestial Park. New decorative railings have been installed on both sides of the bridge. Nearby is the newest construction inside of Epic Universe, which is the 2 quick service dining locations. This update, steel beams have begun to rise above the concrete floor. There are several beams staged on the ground nearby, ready to be installed. In front of the entry portal to the How to Train Your Dragon land, a large, odd-shaped foundation has been poured. This foundation is in the same area as the entry courtyards that are both to Dark Universe and the Wizarding World. Since our last update, the dueling launch coaster of Starfall Racers has since been renamed to Stardust Racers due to the ongoing legal battle with Starfall Education. In front of the coaster building, where the trains are coming head-on, the comet theming is getting covered, which is likely a sign that painting is in progress. As the coaster trains are shot out of the coaster building towards the first top hat, they are launched through a fog effect, or stardust. This fog effect is the first time we are seeing it in our aerial updates. Making our way to the entrance to the coaster building, that shooting star shape we saw inside of the courtyard form has finally been poured. Behind the coaster building, in the extended queue area, more curbing for the queue has been formed on the far side of the service road. It looks as though the service road will play a part in the queue based on the current layout. Inside of the curbing, we can see several staged pieces of steel which look like they could be railings for the edges of the queue. All around the coaster grounds, the black permanent fencing appears to be complete. In the center of Celestial Park sits Constellation Carousel, where the first glass roofing panels are actively being installed in this update. The installation of these panels confirms that the white panel that has been in place for the last 6 months was just a temporary panel. Just outside of the entrance to this ride, there are several pallets of these glass panels ready in crates to be lifted into place. Along the edge of the carousel, decorative railing has been installed which overlooks the middle water feature. Around the edge of this water feature, several semicircle concrete walls have been poured. Opposite to Constellation Carousel from these forms sits the building which houses the Super Nintendo store and Pizza Moon. The glass bump out of Pizza Moon has begun to receive a concrete walkway which connects this part of the building to the main entrance. The restaurant building, which we believe will be named the Oaken Star Tavern, has had its exterior brickwork complete, as well as several smaller windows on the right side of the front entrance. Additional trees have also been planted in this area, covering much of the building from ground view. Near the Oaken Star Tavern sits Celeste Tiki Bar, where a lot of guest walkways can be seen being formed out in preparation for concrete. The Blue Dragon Pan-Asian restaurant continues to receive exterior painting, while the waterfall feature that separates the location from Celestial Park is beginning to be painted. At the top of the main show fountain, A compass has been shaped out of a concrete form, leading to believe there will be a colored pattern on this part of the walkway, similar to the other courtyards around Celestial Park. Around 60% of the pathway, making its way around the main show fountain, has been poured and is being covered by protective sheeting. Something very interesting to point out is that we can see light poles beginning to be installed around the fountain. These light poles have the same bluish-green color as seen as the Kronos Tower. The seating for the fountain has seen another section poured between Astronomica and Meteor Astropub, while the last set of seating can be seen being prepared to be formed out before concrete is ready to be poured. Speaking of Meteor Astropub, smaller arched windows are beginning to be installed on the long walls of the structure, making their way towards the rotunda. The arched walls we saw being framed in last week on the rotunda have since been walled in and match the arches that are currently getting windows installed. It is safe to assume next update we will see windows inside of these openings of this quick service location. A few guests will have some of the best views of Epic Universe, which would be the ones staying in the on-site hotel of Helios Grand Hotel. Opposite the Epic Universe side of the resort, more steel has been installed at the entrance overhang. In the pool area, the backfilling around the pool and hot tub appears to be completed. Moving higher onto the hotel, there have been ornamental theming elements added on the tiered roofs on both sides of the tower. On the main roof, the fifth dome has been added, which makes the dome installation appear complete, with two smaller domes on one side and two on the other of the main dome. Workers can be seen on the main dome preparing the dome for the next layer of roofing. Back on the ground, on the Epic Universe side, we can see a pathway winding its way from the overhang of the hotel right next to the Blue Dragon Pan-Asian restaurant, leading into the courtyard in front of the Blue Dragon. Is this the Helios Grand dedicated entrance to the land? Or could this be an exit from Epic Universe back into the resort? The first land that we will go over in this week's update is the colorful world of Super Nintendo World. Inside of the Mushroom Kingdom, at Bowser's Fortress, we can see claws at the bottom of the front two turrets of the castle. Next door, near the Bowser Jr. entrance, a new painted area has been completed and looks to be awaiting windows. Underneath Mount Beanpole sits the Yoshi's Adventure Omni-Mover Family Ride, where additional theming is being placed around the final scenes of the ride. Around the entire ride path, and this side of the Mushroom Kingdom, there are several characters, including a Goomba, visible on the moving bases, which one of the characters is involving a green pipe. This is the first green pipe that has been visible in all of Super Nintendo World for Orlando. Closer to Peach's castle, the rolling element for the Goomba activity with the Power-Up Band Challenge has been installed in its final home. Down in the lower courtyard of the Mushroom Kingdom, painting continues around the attraction entrance for Yoshi's Adventure, as well as Toadstool Cafe. Through the opening, underneath of Yoshi's Adventure, guests can travel into the ancient ruins of Donkey Kong Country, where the dividing wall that separates this part of Super Nintendo World from the rest of Epic Universe has been framed out to the edge of Minecart Madness. Along this wall, more of the green metal has been installed on the backside of Mount Beanpole. Just in front of this wall sits the structure that will house Funky's Fly and Buy gift shop, which is a themed crashed plane. The framing for the plane can be seen starting to be installed around the concrete structure now. Outside of the coaster building, where the newest spiked themed element has emerged, the spikes and rocks are continued to get painted, where the minecarts will look as though they are jumping over these spikes. A little farther down the tracks, near the entrance to the coaster, there are what appears to be several coaster theming elements staged on the pathway. The pathway in this area has received a painted stone look. Just off this pathway, the structure next to Bubbly Barrel's snack stand, which is thought to be the character meet and greet, is beginning to go vertical with steel beams being installed. Inside of the coaster tracks, where the rock theming is located, it appears that this will be a second waterfall for the coaster, with this waterfall rolling off of the rocks and into the splash portion of the coaster. On top of the lift hill, there are several ornamental theming elements on the corners of the lift hill building. Further up the lift hill, there looks to be new palm trees staged on the roof, ready to be painted and installed on top of the temple. After finally seeing the oversized character head behind the lift building, this head has been installed high above the temple behind the scaffolding. On either side of the head, we can see additional theming elements covered in plastic hiding in the scaffolding. Next door to Donkey Kong Country sits the darkest land in Epic Universe, Dark Universe. At the mouth of the entry portal to Dark Universe, the second entry courtyard is beginning to be formed, with several shapes inside of the walls. Inside of the preview center, we have seen the first use of the name Darkmoor, which is believed to be the name of the village of the land. Once again, Alicia from Theme Park Stop hit the nail on the head with this name. Inside of Darkmoor, there is quite a bit of detail being added, which includes decorative balconies on the second level, as well as a bell being installed in the bell tower at the front of the village. As we make our way from Darkmoor into the Dark Forest, we make our way to the spinning roller coaster of Curse of the Werewolf, where the coaster is currently undergoing continuous ride testing with multiple ride trains in play. On the other side of the forest, the manor that houses the feature ride to the land has seen some changes as well. Near the bridge that guests will cross before entering the manor, landscaping is being done, which looks to be for the water feature that we believe will act as a moat for the manor. High above the land, on the roof of the manor, we can see the curved metal roofing being installed on the right side of the manor, making its way towards the center. Behind the manor, inside of the extended queue area, the majority of the railings have been installed, with just a small section remaining. Between Burning Blades Tavern and the extended queue area, a new back-of-house pathway has been formed. Moving into one of the more magical lands of Epic Universe, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Ministry of Magic. Just inside of the land, as soon as guests make their way through the entry portal, they are met by newly planted large trees that completely hide the view of the replica streets from guests entering the land. After passing through the replica arch and making your way into the Parisian streets, about 90% of the street area has been paved throughout the 5 streets. The majority of the streets are now being covered by protective sheeting during the remainder of construction. Along the roof line of one of the streets, there is a very interesting multicolored theming around the windows. Inside of the extended queue area, behind the feature ride of the land, the framing for this covering appears to be completed. As suggested in the last video, the look of this covering indeed looks as though it is some sort of train station or bus stop awning. Inside of the queue area, scaffolding has been erected underneath of the roof frame. The scaffolding has created a working platform for the roof, while roofing panels are being installed to finish up this part of the queue. There have been 2 lands the past several updates that have been battling back and forth for most progress over the last several updates. The first being Super Nintendo World, specifically in Donkey Kong Country, and the second being How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Burk. Guests who enter this land are met by the large lagoon, where the coaster tracks of Hiccup's wing gliders splashes through the water. Temporary pools have been constructed along the coaster tracks to aid in the splash testing of the coaster while work around the lagoon continues. Just before the second launch of the coaster, the themed fencing, which is the border of the land, is complete. However, the taller posts of this fence are still bare. Bordering the second launch of the coaster sits Viking Training Camp, which is the kids' play area of the land. The initial framing for the entrance to this area has been installed, awaiting theming. Throughout the area, several new pieces of playset have been installed, which include additional vertical supports and flooring leading to different areas of the playset. There has also been a number of trees planted in sync with these pieces of the playset. Inside of the queue area to Hiccup's wing gliders, 2 new structures have been installed, as well as several trees have been planted. The way these structures are placed in the queue, they appear that they will be used for theming rather than shelter for guests in the queue. At the end of the scene for the first launch of the coaster, we can see what looks like 2 large rocks being suspended in the air. These rocks are what will be used by Hiccup to propel the flying machine down the tracks. Next to the entrance to the queue of Hiccup's wing gliders, there is some interesting sculpting happening in between the scaffolding on top of the retail building overlooking the lagoon. Just over the footbridge sits Dragon Racer's Rally, which has seen several footers for vertical supports installed in the ground. This is likely for guest covering in the queue. Overshadowing the pair of spinning rides is the grandstands which Hiccup's wing gliders flies through. These colorful grandstands have been covered in scaffolding for the last several updates, but now just a small section remains, giving us our first unobstructed view of the grandstands and dragon houses. On top of the grandstands, there is a throne visible, which would give you a fantastic view of the Isle of Burk. On the opposite side of the lagoon sits the target boat ride of Fire Drill, which has seen a plethora of boats delivered since our last update. There are now upwards of 15 boats near the service building in various stages of being put together. The 4 boats that we have seen in the load station last update can now be seen under a lean-to of the service building. Inside of the queue for Fire Drill, the area is starting to come to life with winding paths now visible, as well as several small trees have recently been planted. Closer towards the entrance to the ride, more pathways can be seen being formed out as we make our way up the hill towards Mead Hall. As we fly out of this week's Universal Epic Universe construction update, I want to ask what you think about all of the news surrounding Epic Universe that has been released in the last couple of weeks. Do you think Epic Universe will be open for spring break? Leave a comment below and tell us what you think. I would like to thank BioReconstruct for the aerial views as always, and if you aren't already, be sure to follow him on social media. Be sure to subscribe so you do not miss the next Universal Epic Universe construction update. And until next time, travelers, have a great one.